Welcome back, Sebastian here, and time for my preview for the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix. First taking a look at the track layout. Now you may not have noticed, but one thing that's definitely different compared to other tracks that we've had so far this year is that there are no straight line mode zones at Monaco. And that is because the FIA has decided that none of the straights are suitable for it to be used. Also, another potential factor for why they've opted to do this is that the energy limitations of the Monaco circuit are not necessarily anywhere near as bad as they are at places like Australia, Japan, that kind of thing. So they don't really have the energy problems that other circuits have had so far this year. Now, looking at some stats for this track, it's 3.337 kilometers, and we expect to have 78 laps of racing on Sunday. The race lap record continues to be a 1:12.909 set by Lewis Hamilton in 2021, with the average speed of that lap being 165 kilometers an hour, which ranks dead last, 23rd out of 23 tracks on this year's calendar that we have data for. Downforce rating is 1 is the max downforce configuration. In fact, quite a few teams, not sure so much these days, but definitely before the cost cap, teams would bring a special Monaco spec wings front and rear just to suit the Monaco circuit. Cars will be full throttle for 33% of the lap, and the corner tendency is slow. But one of the unique circuits aspects of this track is that not necessarily aerodynamic grip, obviously that's very important, but mechanical grip, I think, an underrated aspect of the racing at Monaco. Just going back to the circuit layout again for one more time. Of course, normally when I do this, I talk about overtaking areas, but of course, this is Monaco. We know that overtaking is extremely difficult, and likely we're not going to have any passes beyond the first lap, although we did get one last year, which was quite a shock given how bad last year's cars were for racing. So thanks, Lance Stroll, for giving us that one overtake. But hypothetically, if we would have an overtake at Monaco, where would it happen? Well, if it is a dry race, generally the best place is into the turn 10, 11, the Nouvelle Chicane. Saint Devant's not really a realistic option. Opening lap of the race, you might see a move here or there at the hairpin turn 6. One other spot I would say is at Rascasse turn 18. And again, very, very risky there if you do attempt to move. Now, more stats about this track. Qualifying is going to be very, very important this weekend. The pole to win percentage is 73%, which surprisingly enough is not first amongst all tracks on the calendar. I believe Dutch Grand Prix Zandvoort and Yas Marina Abu Dhabi Grand Prix have a higher pole to win conversion rate, but still very, very important. That being said, getting the strategy with his pit stops right is also extremely important, and once you get that done, you're pretty much home and dry in most races. Now, for rookie out qualifying percentage, 32%, kind of middle of the road, 13th out of the 23 tracks on this year's calendar. The F2 drivers, F3 drivers do race here, so they do have experience at Monaco. Otherwise, I would expect the percentages to be much lower, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see how our one rookie, Arvid Lindblad, fares this weekend. Safety car percentage, surprisingly low, 43%. That was according to F1's preview from last year. And I don't think we had a safety car last year, which means that, in fact, it's even lower. So a little bit of a surprise, safety car percentages as low as it is. But historically, we didn't have a lot of safety cars, and because the marshals around Monaco are so good, so excellent, sometimes they can clear things away very, very quickly under just double waved yellows or even a virtual safety car. Now, this is one of the most historic tracks on the F1 calendar. Our first race as part of the F1 Championship was in 1950, but of course, they hosted the Monaco Grand Prix many years before that, before World War II and such. And so this is one of the oldest tracks on the F1 calendar in terms of total age. Now, tires for this weekend, same as what we had in Canada 2 weeks ago. Soft C5, medium C4, and the hard C3. Weekend schedule, this is our first non-sprint weekend in almost 2 months, and has felt like quite a long time. But Friday, FP1, 1:30 p.m. local time, FP2 at 5. Expected weather forecast for FP2 is 21 degrees and sunny. Then we get to Saturday, FP3, 12:30, before qualifying at 4. That is the most important session of the weekend, 22 degrees and partially cloudy. Sunday, Grand Prix at 3 p.m. sharp, 22 degrees, mostly sunny. an engineer's dream, that weekend schedule with the weather. Very consistent temperatures for the main important sessions, and again, not a lot of rain expected, just sunny and a couple clouds on Saturday and Sunday. So shouldn't be a super crazy weekend in terms of weather or anything like that, which means that we're going to have to rely on qualifying and maybe some crashes for the race on Saturday or the race on Sunday to be entertaining. Now, 2025 race, not the most exciting, won by Lando Norris, his first Monaco Grand Prix win. Charles Leclerc, very good effort from him to get second, and then Oscar Piastri in the sister McLaren in third. Of course, last year's race had the debut of the, I guess at this point now, infamous 2 mandatory pit stop rule, where drivers were forced to pit twice for new tires during the race. Rule kind of backfired. We had a couple occasions where drivers' teammates were back-to-back. You had the Williams running one after another, same with the Racing Bulls, and so they used quite extreme tactics to hold the pack up while the other pitted, and basically reversed positions and did the same thing again. So the that 2 pit stop rule has been scrapped for 2026, so we're back to just 1, which I honestly think is better. I don't expect a whole lot on Sunday, but hopefully Saturday qualifying can give us a pretty good show. Now, taking a look at best and worst qualifiers at this track, especially important at Monaco because overtaking is so hard. Now, best qualifier historically, compared to their career averages, is actually Sergio Perez. He's outqualified his teammate 2.08 times more than would be expected based on his career averages. His median qualifying gap at this track is 0.64 of a second, so relatively small, but still in his favor. Number 2 is local boy home favorite Charles Leclerc. He's outqualified his teammates 1.47 times more than would be expected, with a median qualifying gap of about 2.5 of a second, so a very impressive gap that Leclerc has had against his teammates at this track. Number 3 is the other Cadillac driver, Valtteri Bottas, a positive 0.99, with a median qualifying gap of just over 1/10 of a second. Then we get to the worst qualifiers at this track, and number 1 is Leclerc's teammate Lewis Hamilton, complete opposite of Canada last time around, where Hamilton was on the best list and Leclerc was on the worst list. Hamilton has been outqualified by his teammate 1.8 times more than would be expected, with a median qualifying gap of a bit rare in Hamilton's case in the positives, positive 0.059 seconds. Then we get to number 2, and that is Nico Hülkenberg. He's been outqualified 1.44 times more than expected, with a median qualifying gap of just even in his favor, but still compared to his career averages, a little bit less than normal. Then when we get to number 3, it's actually Max Verstappen. He's been outqualified here 0.99 times more than would be expected, but because this Max Verstappen, his career numbers against his teammates are so crazy, his median qualifying gap is still 4.5 in his favor, which is actually higher than his career average. So a little bit interesting how that works out. I think for Verstappen, a lot of his struggles were early in his career. So taking a look at my quality model and its predictions for which teammate will come out ahead in the qualifying battles this weekend, the 11 drivers are Piastri, Antonelli, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Lawson, Alonso, Behrman, Bortoleto, Gasly, and Bottas. Some of the gaps pretty big, looking at Alonso and Stroll there, but Stroll does have a pretty horrific record around this track. It'll be interesting to see how he does this weekend. Pretty remarkably, Piastri and Norris were basically tied, had to go to tens of thousands of a second to find the differentiator, and that was the winner there was Piastri. So almost dead even between the 2 McLaren drivers. That will be an interesting one to watch. And of course the 2 Mercedes as well. Antonelli predicted to slightly outqualify his teammate Russell. Will be interesting to see if that comes to pass. Now, predictions for this weekend. A lot of talk about the Ferrari. It seems to have the best chassis, very good in slow speed corners, very good at starts as well, so obviously with a smaller turbo, but that is something that has kind of fallen away a little bit the last couple of weeks. That being said, I am going to make a bold prediction here, and I do think that a Ferrari is going to win the Grand Prix. And I'm going to have a Mercedes 2-3. Now, which Mercedes are we going to put in ahead? That's a tough one to call. My model does have Antonelli out-qualifying Russell, but I think Russell's going to be extremely motivated to get on top of his younger teammate after what happened last time in Canada. So I am going to put Antonelli third, and I'm going to put Russell second. Now for that winning Ferrari, of course, it's going to be Charles Leclerc. I do think that Leclerc does have a chance of getting a home win here. It might be Ferrari's best chance of a win in 2026. They're just going to have to make sure to get qualifying right right, and then of course nail the timing of that pit stop. We have seen years in the past where Mercedes were dominant, that sometimes Monaco would be a bit of a bogey track for them, or a track where they're not necessarily as dominant. We saw that in 2016 where Ricciardo got pole, should have won the race, and then of course lost it because of errors in the pit stops. So again, it's not unheard of for this to be a race where the Mercedes, in an era where they had a stronger engine, didn't exactly do as well in Monaco. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. You of course have the Monaco specialist in Leclerc driving the car, a car that should suit the track a little bit more than it has some of the previous tracks. So it will really be a case of executing, qualifying, getting the setup absolutely right, and then of course a good race from there. So that's all for my preview predictions for the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.